Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Kimberly Cloud Show. I'm your host, Kimberly Cloud. Today, I got a very, very special guest here for the show today. Can you go ahead and announce to the world who you are and where you're calling from?
Yes, my name is Jim Shoopack. I know it does say doctor in front of me, but I that's what my students call me, Dr. Shoopack. I'm Jim Shoopack to everyone else out there, and I'm calling actually from the beautiful Pocono Mountains in eastern Pennsylvania. We're right off of Route 80, and you wouldn't know it, but we are 75 miles directly from Midtown Manhattan. But if you look outside my where I am today, it doesn't look like a city or that we're 75 miles away from Midtown Manhattan.
Wow, have you been there?
Oh yeah, actually, I married someone from New York. My wife's from Staten Island, so
Congratulations.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been fortunately married to my best friend for 15 years, and we celebrated 15 years in August. And so, but yeah,
Guess what, though? You know what's pretty cool? I used to live in a Napa area in Mountaintop, and I've been through to the Pocono Mountains. So it's very beautiful out there, y'all. I suggest y'all take a look. So, can you tell me about your past leading up into your present? Whatever you want to talk about, I'm all
sure.
ears.
Actually, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. That's really the thing I just want to thank you with. I mean, I have one of my dogs on here, Snitches. The Lord of the Manor, if you will. But we'll he he's gotten me through some tough times. We'll get to that later. Essentially, Kimberly, I'm a survivor of two bouts with major depressive disorder, and I use the term survivor because for 100 days in 2001, I had suicidal ideations. I didn't know that I had major depressive disorder. In other words, I had all the symptoms. I wanted to kill myself. I had voices in my head saying, "You're worthless. You stink." Even far worse than that. You should just kill yourself. Get rid of this world that you live in. No, you don't deserve to live. Um,
Before you go any further,
sure.
Jim, what was the triggers? What was happening during the course of your life? Were you alone? Where were you
Um,
living? What was going on?
that's a really good question. Um, so I would say the triggers that I believe, at least, and from therapy, I've been going to therapy and had in the past and still do this to this day, weekly therapy, is I was youth leader at my church, has nothing to do with that. But in my mind, I was picturing myself married at 25, having kids, what have you. Well, at that point in time, I was 26. No, I wasn't in a relationship. I didn't have any kids. Um, as much as I enjoyed my career, the job, it wasn't a career for me for the future. It wasn't a
Mhm.
career that I could see myself doing for extended period of time. It was one that, again, it gave me opportunities to serve in Appalachia, Camden, New Jersey, in Central America on service trips, which was amazing and it gave me priceless experiences. But taking care of myself financially, I essentially was making minimum wage and living in eastern Pennsylvania, again, 75 miles from Midtown Manhattan, and it's a commuting community. They can afford to charge high rent. They can afford to charge because people will pay it. Well, when you're making minimum wage ish, you can't afford it. So there were some elements that were going on. Sorry about that.
That's
That
okay. Bring them all.
but Stewart will come on, I'm sure, at some point in time. We call him Wacky for a reason. This one's the king of the castle, though. But he's used to the notoriety, if you will. But yeah. So this is just my belief, and it's just the trauma from having a life that I felt I would have been living, but I wasn't living that life. So it was almost a dreams destroyed. And the saying goes, when man or woman plans, God laughs. And I'm not saying he was laughing at my situation, but he had something bigger for me, something better for me, something. But I didn't know it at the time. And and it. I remember the first time it happened when it just snapped when I felt depressed was in February.
Mhm.
Well, February in the Pocono Mountains is very dreary, very dull, very sullen. And yes, I think I still have a touch of seasonal affective disorder, just where I get the blahs, but not
Mm-hmm.
depressed,
Mm-hmm.
not depressed by any means. So that's really one of the big things I think that might have caused it. And that's at least, that's my thinking. That's talking to psychologist, or pardon me, therapist, and just talking to other people. It was as if I had passed what my quote unquote deadline was for my dream. And then I'm thinking, what am I going to do with my life? Like, I can't survive continuing to live this way. Again, I love what I did. And in fact, I'm a volunteer for the youth group now, but I can come and go as I, please. And I have my other career as a school teacher. So that's what I believe was the causing some of that trauma, if you will.
The
And
stress.
it could be the stress partly, and just unresolved aspirations
Mm-hmm.
that I had gotten past a certain point. And I should also preface this too. When I was 13, I had an epileptic seizure. So there already
Mm-hmm.
was a chemical imbalance. And there's no history of this in my family, Kimberly. So I was, as I call myself, the chosen one. um, Fortunately, my brother, he was with me when I fell over. I remember watching a baseball game. I was about 13 years old, over 13, and I turned blue. Well, if you turn blue, you're not getting any oxygen. So he actually ran back, got my dad. Next thing I know, I wake up and I'm on my bed. So there already was something there. So it might have just been the perfect storm, for lack of a better word. So perhaps the chemical imbalance that existed already from the epilepsy. It's more of a seizure disorder now. Thank God I haven't had a seizure in about 30 years. However, at that time, I had that, and then later on, I had the depression. So it could have been that. And I've talked to my neurologist about it, and we've had very open, honest conversations. And he said, "Look, I can't definitely tell you it was that, but he could say that's definitely a recipe for it
Yeah.
could have been." So I oftentimes will say, one day when I see God, hopefully I'll ask him. But right now, my goal is to just hopefully educate and let people know, like, these are things that can cause depression. So with the seizures, and yeah, so that's my belief, at least, of what caused the onset. And so again, the perfect storm of the seizures, the unfulfilled dreams, the where do I go next, because I'm not really making a lot of money. I can't, like, I'm living with my parents, which it's fine. A lot of people live with their parents now into their, I don't know, 40s, because they can't afford, with the housing market being what it is.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I was also comparing myself to others. That's something you should never do. Don't ever compare your path to somebody else's path. That's something I've learned the hard way, but that's something I like to teach people. Your path is unique from other people's, and that's really one of the things that I did learn, is just go on the path that you are supposed to go, that God's paved for you, and then he'll help you get down the path you're supposed to go on. You just have to have faith.
Tell me about your out of body experience and you having
Oh,
faith and what you saw with your vision.
yes. Wow. I'm getting chills just thinking about it.
Oh,
So, going into my depression, the first time, 2001, for days on end, I had all the symptoms. I was suicidal. I had suicidal thoughts. I had thoughts about, just worthless thoughts that people, and I was very sad, sullen. Nothing could cheer me up. Somebody might sneeze and I might snap, like just things like that. And so a lot of my existence was me just talking to God, saying, God, please take me, as in take me home to heaven, or make me feel better. I don't care which you choose. It's up to you. But at that point, and it was like every day, and every minute of every day seemed to be that prayer. Oh,
do you
regardless.
have any friends or family?
Oh yeah, I live with my parents. But at that point in time, and they're very supportive. Oh, my brother, incredibly supportive. They knew something was wrong, I think, but it wasn't as if we just didn't have that conversation, and they oftentimes say it will take the symptoms of depression, having them for about 3 months before someone truly notices it. That's what, at least in my reading, and lo and behold, I had the symptoms for just over 3 months before somebody actually noticed. And but back to the out of body experience, I'd be laying on my sofa, and the one time I just fell asleep, and this must have been, I don't know, 1 or 2 in the morning. I don't really remember. I don't recall having a watch on, but
Mhm.
I remember levitating out of my body. It must have been my soul looking down, and I recall looking down on my body. And then I looked in the corner of my parents' room, and I saw the Holy Family. And for those of you who don't know who the Holy Family is, it's Jesus, his adopted father, Joseph, and the Blessed Mother, Mary. And they just looked at me, and it was like a little smile they had on their face, pardon me. And Jesus was about 5 to 7 years old, more or less somewhere in there. Like, think of almost like a kindergartner, a little older than that. And nothing was said, but I knew nothing was communicated as far as orally. But like mentally, I could tell they were like saying something along the lines of, "We hear you. You will get better. Things will get better." Sorry, I get a little emotional when I think about it. But
Let them know you never took any drugs.
no, I never in my life have I ever taken any illegal drugs. Never in my life. I rarely drink alcohol. In fact, this year, for example, I've had 2 drinks. One was when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I'm a big Eagles fan. And another one was when we went to the birthday party of the daughter of a friend of ours who turned 21. So I had about a glass of wine and a shot of whiskey. That's all I've had this year, but that's more or less evidence of my whole life. That's more or less what my whole life has been. It doesn't do anything for me. It
Tell me
really,
about your eating habits.
oh, go ahead.
Tell me about your eating habits. Before you tell me about your eating habits, tell me, when have you taken your negative thoughts, such as, "Oh, I'm worthless," and etc., and turned it into a positive and said to yourself, "Well, I'm a doctor now. I have a beautiful wife. I possibly have kids, etc." When have you did that? You there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Could you say that one more time, Kimberly? Like, we kind of
That's
lost the connection there. I apologize.
That's okay. I said, when have you taken your negative thoughts and turned it into positive? Like, for instance, you say to yourself, "I have a beautiful wife. You possibly have kids. I don't know yet. And you have beautiful
No.
dogs. You have a family.
Yeah, I'm like, now that first bout was 2001. The second one was 2021. And it was right after my brother had died, unfortunately, suicide. He had been going through depression himself. He had gone to the ER. He felt something was wrong. They did all these tests on him, but they couldn't find anything. So I can imagine that being incredibly scary for someone. But they never ran any tests that were psychological related tests. So that, yeah, but that's for another time, I guess. But right after he died, the school year ended, and I was okay. And then it just came out of like left field. It just happened. And I can remember this was far worse than the first one, as if the first one could have been topped. But I knew the moment it happened. We were walking in the door, and I remember my wife was with me, and I remember telling her, "It's back." And she said, "What's back?" And I said, "The depression." She said, "How?" And she knew, like, she could tell how I knew because I can compare it to before. But this time it was for 7 weeks. And God bless my wife. Like, she truly epitomized the whole through sickness and health, part. Because I'll be honest, it would have been difficult to forgive someone if they weren't there at that point in time, because it could have cost me my life. But she was every minute of every day. Like in the summer, it happened, and I had far worse. But I would see hallucinations. I would have almost. I would see. Imagine what we perceive as a demon or the devil, and I would see hallucinations on
It-
people's faces.
and I can feel what you're saying. I have never experienced, but I can understand what you're saying because I have seen things that other people haven't seen. And just because you see things that other people haven't seen doesn't mean that they're not real. We just see on different frequencies.
Right. Yeah, and it like my therapist, God bless her, she had told me, Jim, it will get better. You just have to have faith. Now, my therapist is also Christian. Like so I couldn't have an atheist therapist. It just wouldn't have worked out. So she was incredibly helpful, and just helping me process a lot of this. Just saying like it will get better, and but my wife, like we would go for walks sometimes 2-3 times a day, only because the anxiety that also existed was almost telling me like you got to get out, man. You got to get out. You have to do something. You can't just sit here. And the depression was telling me, oh, you're not worth it. You should just sit there. Nothing's going to help you. You should just take your own life. And
You don't do no drugs,
nothing.
smoke.
Oh no, I'm asthmatic. I would never take.
Wow.
The only time that I have ever smelled a drug is when I was in Canada and people were smoking marijuana, and I can remember smelling it, and I was like, "That, that's it." Like secondhand, or at a concert, like here in the United States, and it's like, wait, that smell isn't cigarette smoke. And I remember my wife telling me, "No, Jimmy, that's pot," and I was like, "But that's it." Never in a million years have I ever, and I will take that to my grave. I have no interest in it. I have
You're in
like
a spiritual battle then.
yes. Oh, I strongly believe it, and I remember reading up on a saint. Like I'm Catholic, and I remember reading up on a saint named Padre Pio, Saint Pio, who when he was alive, he died in 1968, and his body is incorrupt. But so when they dug him up, his body was exactly as if he was just died that day. So if that's not a miracle in itself, I don't know what to tell. But he was attacked by the devil every day. He fought against it, and he always leaned on the Blessed Mother and on Jesus to help support him through those battles. And we would listen to audiobooks on him. We would there's a shrine dedicated to him near me, about an hour and 15 minutes away in Bardo, Pennsylvania. It's down near Allentown. If people are familiar with the Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton area.
I know where Allentown is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so we would go down there to his shrine. They have items that were actually used by him that has a blood stain from the stigmata that he had suffered for 50 years. Like I became like I didn't he's not God to me. He's a friend who led me closer to God. I look at him as like a cool uncle that can kind of lead me the path that I know I need to go on. Like so he every and my wife gave me this not poem, prayer book from Saint Michael the Archangel, and it was one that um Padre Pio had strongly suggested, and I remember reading one. It was basically a one a day. You read
Sorry.
one. Oh no, you're fine.
You
I would
okay? Fake news.
read. I'd read one prayer a day, and it was for 30 days. And Kimberly, by the time we got to the end of the 30th day, it was like that battle was fought, and Jesus won. I mean, we already know the ending, but it 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 just I'm speechless because I it took that long for the medication, for the therapy, but also for I believe it was a spiritual battle. My brother had just died. What a way to attack the family, but then to take the other son. And I pray for my brother every day, and I have survivor's guilt because I myself have gone through 2 bouts with MDD, major depressive disorder, but I'm still here. And I guess there's a reason why I'm still here. And I think what we're doing right now is that reason. Like God allowed me to speak to you to hopefully share this message to basically give hope for people who don't have hope. Because trust me, like the way I look at it is God doesn't want you to live like this. God doesn't want you to, but it's important to have people in your corner that you can be your true authentic self with, that you can lean on. And when you're going through depression, people don't want to be fixed. They really silent support so huge. And if people who are going through the depression want your help, they'll ask. They might say like, "Hey, what do you think of this?" Or, "Hey, I need help with it," like, or something. But sometimes and I have a good friend. I call her sister from another mister, who both depressions. She was there for me. Not my wife. My wife was. I didn't know my wife at the first time, um, but the second one, and she's a church friend of mine. And the first, like, she would be there for me. Whatever I'd hang out at her house. She'd invite me over. We'd go out for ice cream, whatever. And the second time, when my wife was working, this friend that I'm talking about is a school teacher, so she was off. So she would come over, and I was afraid to be by myself because I couldn't get lost in my own thoughts because I was afraid of what would happen. And she would just sit here. I would sit with her. We'd watch TV, or if I got tired, I'd say, "Hey, do you mind if I go up and take a nap?" Because I just, and she, "No problem. I'll be down here." And just having people like that in your life are just so incredibly critical. And eventually my wife wound up taking off during the summer. She was able to do so because her job was more like a summer contract job. She worked more of a August through June position, but this was in July-ish where I had asked her, like, "Hey, can you take off and stay home with me because I don't trust myself. I have a feeling like one day you're going to come home and see me dead on the floor." Like, just the thoughts were going to get to me too much.
Can
And
you control your emotion when you
oh
hear
yeah,
those thoughts?
I'm
Then
sorry.
you can control your emotion, right? Like if you hear a negative thought saying you should plan and make a plan to do something to or harm to yourself, do you feel like, yeah, that's how I feel. Let me do this or make a plan, or do you feel like, you know what? No, I don't want to do this. I think that this is playing trick. My mind is playing tricks on me.
Is that right? Do you mean right now?
Well, when you were depressed at
Oh, when I
maybe.
was depressed. Okay.
Yeah.
When I was depressed, sorry,
It's okay.
I apologize. When I was depressed, it was more or less if I had somebody here, I could talk to them and I wouldn't get lost in those thoughts. Like, but there were times when I was, sleep, I'd have to get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. Or maybe I just couldn't fall asleep. And I would come down to take, it was a medication called alprazolam that helped me to take the edge off and just to hopefully fall asleep. I remember looking at a kitchen knife and it telling me like, I could take away the pain, but you know what you have to do. And I remember saying like, this is not God talking to me.
Yeah.
This is something else. And
Is
I would
Loprazolam
just remember my
Valium?
wife and my dogs.
Is that
I'm sorry.
Valium? Is that Valium?
Alprazolam. It's a very light drug that just kind of takes the edge off and it makes you sleep. I'm not sure if it's Valium or not, but um,
Okay.
I would remember my parents. They had just lost a son. Remember my dogs. Remember my wife. Remember, really just what was concrete. Because when you're depressed and really going through depression, major depressive disorder, um, you almost just see like this. It's like a pinhole. You don't see anything else. There's no peripheral vision. There's no color in your life. You just see kind of what's right in front of you. So one of the times, my wife's birthday, I remember July 25th, and I would usually buy her a present the beginning of July or maybe have it ordered or have some thoughts. I was so busy just trying to survive that I remember on the 24th saying, "Oh my gosh, Shanna's birthday's tomorrow. I need to get her something." And I ordered it on Amazon as an overnight thing, but that's not who I am. That's not how I do things. I always remember her, important events like that in advance. And but it was a struggle. Like it, I definitely. I mean, I think all of us are proof of it being a miracle, but the trauma and what I have gone through, my therapist said to me, and I'll never forget it. She said, "Jim, I've never seen someone in my 20, 25 years of therapy go from how bad you were to where you are today in such a quote unquote short period of time." And that was over about 7 weeks. But it was, I, I would stay in this recliner, or it was another one that we had here beforehand. I couldn't leave. I couldn't get up. Only reason I get up is to go to the bathroom. That was it. It was almost like my wife,
Do you
my
think
wife.
there's a demon in you
I think there could have been. I think because of my brother having
that
gone.
comes back and forth into
No,
you
no, no. Oh, maybe in the past.
and
Maybe in
like
the past.
put thoughts, negative thoughts? It's not about you being possessed, it's about the negative thoughts you have,
Yes. Oh,
demonic,
I,
dark energy.
I believe it. I believe it, and I believe when I brought like the Blessed Mother, Jesus, Saint Joseph, Padre Pio, and Saint Michael, like some of the, we'll call them the heavy hitters, if you will, that they really, when I allowed them to work through me, and what I mean by that is you have to be open to them to work through you, and I I strongly believe it because, and I have books here actually on protecting yourself from, you know, uh, what is this? I have a Bible called the Spiritual Warfare Bible. I have another which is like a pocket one here. Like I have so many, and I even read books from exorcist, like people who are exorcists, not for the
That's
value.
why. Because you're
What?
very enlightened on demonic beings and they hate that. They hate when you're
Yeah.
smart like that.
And I didn't do that till after the fact, though. I didn't do it. See, my wife and I used to watch ghost shows, and then we stopped altogether. And then I started to read the Exorcist books because of the education value, not for the. I hate to use. I don't want to use the word entertainment because it's not entertainment, but for the education of what exactly a priest would use, and it kind of gave me that ammunition, if you will, or that of what I can do to protect myself for the future and protect the people that I care about.
And what one last thing, because we're running out of time.
Sorry.
So for like 2 minutes, can you tell me what are the factors for those who feel like they're possessed through whatever that food or sex or drugs or not even nothing, just a different frequency? What would protect you from that? And you have the floor for a minute.
Okay. Big thing is your prayer. I believe strongly in prayer. I believe strongly in going to daily mass if you can. I believe in the Holy Eucharist. See, in the Catholic faith, we see the Holy Eucharist as the body of God. And when you are receiving the body of God, of Jesus, there's nothing more powerful than that, and Him living through you. I believe, but constant prayer. I wear a crucifix, pardon me, which has a. It's actually the medal of Saint Benedict, and Saint Benedict is an important saint in the Catholic faith, where his medal actually has an exorcism written on it. It says something along the lines of "Be gone, Satan, drink your own blood," along those lines. And this is actually a similar crucifix that an exorcist would use in an exorcism. It's called the Saint Benedict medal. We have those throughout our homes. My parents do, and I use holy water every night before I go to sleep. I bless myself on some Holy Spirit. I connect my mind, my heart, my soul, everything to Jesus. And I say, Jesus, whatever is in my life, I put it at the foot of the cross, and you put it where it's supposed to go, because He's not going to lead me wrong. And I apologize. I'm starting to get in a coughing fit here,
It's okay. Me
but
too.
so and I do that to my wife. I bless her. I bless my 3 dogs before I go to sleep. Just to keep them protected. But we have a warm environment in the house. We have a lot of crosses in the house, crucifix. We have pictures of Jesus, picture of the Blessed Mother, picture of different saints. Like, it's really a shrine, to, you know, of sorts. And even on the door handle, we have the crucifix of Saint Benedict. So it's Jesus being crucified on the cross, but it also has the Saint Benedict medal behind, which is again the one that is used by people who are priests who are involved in exorcisms. So and staying away from lust, staying away from a lot of those things that take us away from Jesus. And I oftentimes look, I'm good at sinning. I'll tell you that. But you know what? I do my best, and I believe all of us, to a certain. But I can only speak about myself. But it's important to realize that Jesus will take you back. But if it's something that takes you away from Him, you got to try your hardest to correct it. Definitely.
Touche. I'll end with this. God, the God of this universe created a lot of planets, infinite planets, and I feel like if the devil have friends, so do God. So when I pray to God, I not only pray to God, but I pray beyond God. So if you ever feel stuck, like, your prayers aren't being answered, which I know they will be, because I believe in God. I'm not atheist at all. Then talk to his friends or his family, and that's what you did. And that's
Yep.
why you saw what you saw, you know. So, do you have anything you would like to end with before we leave?
Just a couple things. I
Spiritual.
just say, like, the 988 crisis hotline is always there. You can call or text. If you're unsure where to start with your pastor, start with your church. They will have resources, or go to a mental health organization in your town. They will help. I've been blessed to share my story on well over 30 podcasts around the world. And one constant thing that people have asked me is, why don't I have a podcast? And I'm happy to share that I finally started one, and it's called Matters and Mischief with Dr. Jim Shoopack. So if you see
Okay.
it, if people are interested, and it deals with not just some of the things we've talked about, but growth mindset, about living your best self, about people who different ways of giving. It talks about, yes, some of the heavier things like mental illness, like losing a loved one to suicide. Eventually, my wife is going to be on with me to talk about what it's like to take care of someone going through major depressive disorder. We're also, there's a mischievous side of it. We talked about quirky holiday traditions from around the world. That sense of community it definitely helps. And eventually, my dogs are going to roast me. So we're going to roast. It's not all serious. Some episodes are, but some episodes you have to have that mischievous. And I will say, in school, I am teaching wise, I'm known as a prankster. So I am one who does like to pull my fair share of honest pranks, but not to hurt anyone. It doesn't hurt anyone, but I definitely like to or just do something silly that might make somebody smile. Like, and because I think we need a lot more of that in life. Our world is too negative. There's too much negative energy, and if I can help be part of that light, because if my candle will brighten up someone else's, and hopefully it'll brighten up someone else's, and hopefully it'll brighten up someone else's. It's just going to create, laughter and happiness in the world, and that's what we need, in my opinion, a lot more of. And that's what's going to bring us closer to God, I believe, because He wouldn't want us to have that. He doesn't want negativity in our life, but you have to also stay on that path.
I,
And I know it's easier said than done with drugs and alcohol, but just get the help that you deserve, that you can live your best life, because you deserve that.
well said. And how can the people reach you, Jim?
Actually, my website is www.jimshoopack, just like it is here, but no space. JIMSHOOPACK.com. They could reach me on the podcast as well. If they want to listen, if you don't mind, subscribe. If you like what you hear, please pass along to someone else that you think might enjoy it. It's on Apple Podcasts and it's on Spotify, and I'm working through some quirks on YouTube. But they can also contact me on my email through Dr. Jim Shoopack. It's just what it is, DRJIMSHOOPACK@gmail.com. And right now I'm just kind of working into some of my other social media aspects too. But those would be the best ways for right now. I'm not, my doctorate's in education, it's not in psychology or anything like that. But if someone has a question, said like, "Hey, did you feel this way, or did I can easily, I'll be happy to explain. Yeah, I did, or no, I didn't. Or if they have a question for my podcast, itself, or something they would like me to showcase on my podcast, please throw it my way. I'm happy to run it through the pipeline. And as long as the bosses here, Snitches, Sadie, and Stewart, say it's okay, and I have a feeling they will say it's okay because I do my podcast right from here as well. Anyway, so yeah,
Thank you
so no problem. Thank you, and
for
thank you.
staying alive.
Yes, yes.
Thank you guys for joining my show today. Take care, be safe, and I'll see you guys another time. Bye.